Hey guys, it's Mark Pearson here again with footprint-productions.com to bring you another tutorial. Today we're going to dive into some Espresso and check out how to build a text preset. You can see here in the preview that I've rendered out here, we've got a text preset that will give you custom edges on all of your extrusions, and it will do it all for you. You can see over here kind of a preview of what we're going to build. We have a text box, a font chooser, font size, line spacing, letter spacing, depth, a custom edge, and some settings for materials. I'll show you how to build all of that. But first I want to give some props to a buddy of mine, Eugene Opperman, over at musecreative.net. Really good site, check it out. He's got some tutorials over there. Good guy, and he put out a tutorial a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, called Custom Extruded Text Part 1. I can't wait for Part 2. Anyway, I watched it, checked it out. I thought it was really cool, but then I kind of thought to myself, well, how do I automate this so that I can use it repeatedly in the future? Because that's kind of my MO. I don't like doing things over and over again, so I automate things. So I watched his tutorial, took the techniques, and made a preset. And I'm going to show you how to build it and give you a brief overview of his technique. But I highly suggest you check this out. Eugene Opperman Custom Extruded Text on Vimeo. Let's get into it. Alright, we've got a preset here. I already ran through all of the settings in the user data fields that we will be creating. And you had a little preview of what it looks like. Here's kind of what it does. Let's take a look at this edge. And I will provide this file as a download, free download. If you don't feel like building it yourself, it'll come pre-built. But I highly suggest following along and building it for yourself so you can learn something. But when you download it, you'll get cool text preset null. That's all of your user data. You've also got this pre-built splines hierarchy, and you'll notice I've got some pre-built splines in here for you. So you click on cool text, and down here in the custom edge spline area, this link box, you can drag and drop, and bam, you've got extreme bevel. Ridges is what was already in there. I'll show it to you anyway. There it is. There's rounded 1, which is kind of nice. I kind of like rounded 2. It's a little bit fatter. There's a spiky, which is cool. A spiky 2. Oops. A spiky 2. There's one I called molding, which was kind of just a weird shape. Kind of a molding profile. And molding 2. This one here, horns, is really nice. I like it a lot. It gives you a really interesting curved bevel here, and there's some shape in this area which you wouldn't get with the standard text options within Cinema4D. You don't get this nice little curve here. That's because of this preset. So let's show you how to build it. So we'll start a new scene, Control N or Command N on a Mac, and let's get right into it. So the basis of Eugene's tutorial, I'm going to give you the quick 101 here. We are going to need a text object. Okay, and let's just put a dummy letter in there. Let's go with G. Okay, so we've got this text object. Essentially what this technique is we want to create a spline profile that we can then sweep along the spline of this text object. Okay, that's what's going to create the edge. We're going to use an extruded text, or extrude NURBS, sorry, for the front and back faces of the text, and then through XPresso and the magic of math, we'll rig it all up so that the faces always stay connected to the edges, and all works seamlessly. So let's do it. So we need a text object, and we are going to need an extrude NURBS. Normally what you would do is drop the text as a child of the extrude NURBS just by dragging until you get the down arrow. That extrudes it. Okay, and you know, that's all well and good, but it's not going to work for us. Let's go ahead and change that extrude NURB to 1 movement in the Z direction. That makes it nice and thin. Okay, Now the reason we don't want our text object here is that, let's go back over to this preset, and if I had a text object in this scene that I wanted to control, it has to be within the preset. It can't be the spline. It can't be something the user generates. That has to be done through Espresso in this little text box here. Okay, this is what's driving us. So I can type my name and it will change to my name. I can change the font, do all of that, but all this is through Espresso. So we want to get to a point where we can take this text and change it via Espresso. To do that, let's select the text object and go to this icon here, which is the array drop down, and you'll see this little buddy here. This is called an instance. Now this is very cool. This text instance, now because we had text object selected, it creates an instance of that object and refers to it. So whatever we do to this will happen to this. Okay, so let's pull this text object out and replace it with that instance. So now, we'll collapse this. Now when I type a different letter, say E, boom. Now this is not seen in the viewport at all, this original text object. What we're seeing is this instance object being extruded by the extrude NURBS. That's what we want. We want to be able to control this externally. So we'll go ahead and call this front face. That's going to be our front face. And we will click and hold down Control to get our little plus arrow and drop to create a copy. We'll drop this back over here and we'll call it back face. Face. Okay, so you kind of see where we're going here. Now all we're missing is the spline to sweep to create the extrusion itself. Okay, so what we're going to do is go to the top view and you can hit F5. That'll show you all four, and then you can click this button here. That'll take it full screen. Or let's go back to perspective view. You can also hit F2, and that hotkeys directly to the top view. That's what I like to use. So let's zoom in here and let's turn on the grid. So we go to filter, grid. All right, that gives us something to measure by. Now let's look at what we have here. Now our front face is sitting at the origin, and that's 0, 0, 0. Let's look at the coordinates 0, 0, 0. Everything's cool. That's essential. This axis, this red axis, is the X. We want our spline, our profile that we will use to sweep around the text object, to mirror itself along this X object. We want equal distance between the origin and the first point of the spline as there is between the origin and the last point. Now let me show you what I mean. Let's turn off these faces so they're not in our way. And we'll grab, let's say, a Bezier spline. Always like saying that, Bezier. So click once to create your first spline point, and you want to put that as close as you can to this blue Z-axis, and I'll show you how to refine that in a second. Let's make a little concave or a little hump there, come down. So, you know, the shape doesn't matter, and that's the beauty of it. This area in here can be anything you want, as long as this point and this point are the same distance from the center. Okay, so let's either click here to get your live selection, click this button, or you can hit spacebar and that automatically toggles between your last selected tool and the live selection. So let's select this point because we are in point mode, and let's look at this coordinates manager down here. Let's pull it up. You'll notice the X position is negative 0.061. Okay, so that means it's not perfectly aligned with the Z-axis. So we need to change that to 0. Okay. Now I think this is probably going to be too big, but I'll show you how to fix that in a second. Let's go ahead and round this number down to 100. Okay. And now watch this point when I click apply. Barely moves. So that's good. But we now know that that is at 0 on the X. So it's perfectly in the center of the scene on the X-axis. And it's 100 units up or 100 units back in the Z direction. Let's select this point and we will do the same. 0 on the X. And now this one, because it's opposite, it's the opposing side of this spline, needs to be minus 100. Okay, click apply, boom. And now that these are equally distant from the origin, we can do the math needed to connect them to the front and back faces. Okay, so I can see right away that spline's going to be too big. What we can do, let's just go ahead and do it. Switch over to model mode, which is here. Hit T for scale. Always remember it as transform. So let's scale this puppy down. Let's maybe somewhere like that. Let's make these round numbers 10 and 40 and apply. Okay. Now we have a spline object. Okay, and that's going to be our profile. We will need a sweep NURBS, and we'll put that spline profile in the sweeps and the text object in the sweep. Now that's what you normally do. Now we're not going to do that here because we want to make this dynamic so that the user, next time you use the preset, all you have to do is create a spline and drop it in. So we're going to pull the spline out, okay, and we're going to do our same little trick. Okay, so select the spline, go to this array icon, and create an instance of the spline. So spline instance. Drag that into the sweep NURBS. We're going to pull the text object back out and do the instance buddy again. Instance, okay, text instance. And we're going to drag that in to the sweep NURBS. And I believe that goes there. So let's take a look and see what we got. Not good. Okay. There's something awry. There we go. I had them backwards. So the profile goes first. The path that you want to sweep along goes second. But you see, it's kind of crazy. And Eugene addressed this in his tutorial. And this is one thing I haven't quite figured out how to get rid of. This little manual step that I'm about to show you. Now to fix this, let's go and hit R for rotation. That gives you the rotate tool. And we want to rotate the axis only. Okay, that's what this is, the axis tool. If you're in R12 or earlier, this is going to be a little bit different, but look for the axis tool and not the model. So we want to grab this X axis here to rotate it and hold down. Oops, I'm grabbing the wrong one. I want to grab the spline itself, and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. And as I do that, you can see it adjusting. So I'm holding down shift to constrain it to 5-degree increments. And now that I'm at 90, I let go. And you'll see that we have a nice swept spline. We're almost there. So now, where we go from here is we want to figure out how to get the front face, which is in there, okay, and the back face to attach themselves to this swept spline here. Now if we look at the, let's see, the top view, there we go. So again, that's F2 to toggle. F1 is perspective, F2 is top, 3 is side, and F4 is front. So F2 to hit the top. Okay, so our back face, and I'm going to switch over to the move tool. That's an E. Okay, there's the back face way back there. Front face is at the origin. And you'll also notice the sweep NURBS is at the origin as well. So looking at that in this top view, where we want our back face and our front face to be is here for the back face, and front face we want here. But we want XPresso to do that. Now to do that, we need to find out how long this distance is. What is the distance from this line, this face, to the origin? Well, we already know that. We can find that out by selecting the spline, going into point mode, and looking at the structure manager. If you don't have it docked, I suggest it. It's very handy. Go to Window, Structure Manager, okay? And dock that right there. That's a nice place to keep it. So if you look at, let's get our live selection tool. If you look at this point, this will show you all of the points in any spline or any object, okay? Now, this first point, point 0, point indexes, or however you say it, always start at 0. That's just the way it is. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This has 6 points, 0 being the first point index, 5 being the last. Now, you'll also notice that the values on the y-axis are the same. But you're thinking, wait a minute, we created those on the z-axis. Here it is, z-axis, and this point's on it. Well, I think it's because we rotated the axis of that spline. That's why it changed it to y. That's the best explanation I can come up with. Anyway, we now know that 20 units from the origin is where this point lies. But to get what we want, we can't access the spline. For all intents and purposes, this spline is off limits. Just consider it gone. We have to do everything with what we have in these 4 objects right here. Okay, so we'll select those, and let's go ahead and group them. We'll Alt-G, double-click that, and we will go and call this Elements. Okay, and then I'll hit Alt-G again, and we'll double-click that and call that Cool Text Preset. Okay, that just keeps it nice and tidy. Here, this null object is where we will put our Espresso tag. So let's just go ahead and create one, because we're almost to that point. We've got everything built. We've got all of our elements. We've got a front face, a back face, an edge. Let's go ahead and call this edge. And we have a text object. Okay, and we'll turn this off from the renderer, maybe. We'll leave it on for now. Okay, now we need to go over and let's take a look at the preset that I have before. Under the text settings here, we've got a text box, a font chooser, font size, line spacing, letter spacing, depth. Okay, so these are all the things that we need to create on our new null object in our new project. So we'll click the Cool Text Preset Null object and go to User Data, Add User Data. Okay, now we're getting into the thick of it. Let's take a look at what we need. We need a text, right? We want the user to be able to enter the text. Data type will be a string, and this will be a multi-line string. Good. And we need a font size. Okay. Let's see. Add data, and we'll call this. Let's let them pick their font first. So we'll create a font data type. And we'll leave that as default. That's fine. And let's add another one and call this font size. Okay, and this will be a float. We don't want percent. Let's go with real. Maximum, let's go 400. Nah, let's go 500 just because. Slider max at 250. Default value, let's put 50. I said default value, let's put 50. Okay, so that defaults the font size to 50. Let's see. Let's take another look. Let's go ahead and click here. Let's take another look at the preset and see what else we got. Line spacing, letter spacing, and depth. Okay, let's come back over and click the preset. User data. There's our new ones. Okay, let's add a user data, and let's pull this back down here and call this line spacing. And let's make that a real number. And let's click this one, hold down Control, drag it, and until you get this, and you drop a new one. So that makes a copy, and we'll call this letter spacing. Okay. I shouldn't have copied that one because, oops, line spacing, we don't want 1,000 units line spacing. Let's max it out at maybe 100. Minimum is -100. I said the minimum is -100, and the max is, yeah, we'll just leave it maxed out at 100 here, and let's go 10 as its default. Okay, let's redo all of that. -100 and 100. I said 100. I don't know why it's doing that. And the default value at 10. Okay, now we need to add another one, and we'll call this depth. Okay, and it will be a float, and let's go with a float slider. And not percent. Let's go real, and max of maybe 250, and the slider max, actually max of 100, slider max of 250, default value of 50. My goodness, default value 50. Okay, so let's, to keep everything tidy, let's add a group, and we'll call this cool text preset. Okay, and yep, that's fine. And grab that new group, pull it out of the hierarchy. That way it's not in user data. And then click on text, hold down shift, and click on depth. That selects them all, drag them, and drop them as a child of cool text preset. And click OK. Now you have cool text preset in its own tab, and it's labeled for you. You've got a multi-line text. You've got a font chooser, font size, line spacing, letter spacing, and depth. Doing good. All right. Now, let's go back and go ahead and manage user data. And let's go ahead and add a group. Let's keep it tidy. Let's call this text settings, just like I did before in the example. Drop that as a child of the cool text preset group, and then let's move all of these into text settings. Okay, and let's add another group, and we'll call this edge spline. Right, and pull that out and put it into the cool text preset group, but below, below text settings. And when we click OK here, you'll notice we now have another group. Okay, so let's add some data to that group. User data, manage user data, select edge spline group, and add data. And we will call this custom spline. And this will be a data type of link, because we want to drag things in here to link them. Okay, so click OK. All right, we are all set up. Let's get rocking on some Espresso. What we can do now is drag in our cool text preset and start rigging up some settings. Let's start with the text first, and let's go with font after text, and then font size, line spacing, letter spacing. Come on, Espresso. Depth. Okay, control double click on the node to expand it. That's called optimizing the node. That gives it its optimal size. Okay, much of this is a one-to-one, let's just connect it type thing. So that's not too difficult. There's no math involved in the text box or the font or the size or the spacing or maybe a little in the depth. We'll see. Let's go ahead. So to get the text, the font, the spacing, all of this comes from this text object. And that's why we left it in the preset, but the user won't be able to edit it because they'll edit it with their own custom, well, not with their own custom text, but within the preset they will edit it here. Okay, so let's drag this text object in. Okay, and oops, I didn't mean to do that. Control Z, I made a copy. I meant to control double click to optimize. Okay, and let's drag this text. Red dot gives you a line. When it's green, let go over the blue. Shows you what you can add that to. Okay, we're connecting an output from Cool Text preset to an input of text. So we go to Object Properties. We want the text field because text to text. Okay, and the font, do the same thing. Drag it to the blue, let go of your mouse button, and go to Object Properties and Font. And font size, do the same thing, and you'll notice, let's see, font size is height. When we did the font, there was only one choice. Espresso tries to help you out when it can to limit what you can assign things to. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Line spacing, so we are looking for vertical spacing, that's what it's called. Letter spacing is called horizontal spacing, so we'll connect that. Okay, and we can't control the depth with this text object here, so we're all good there. Now if we go back to our view and we click F1, hit F1 to get to our perspective view, and let's rotate around. Let's get rid of the edge for now. Okay, and then go to our Cool Text preset, and there it is. It just updated for us. If it doesn't update, you can hit A on your keyboard to refresh it. You can rewind it. You have to do that a lot with Espresso, so get used to that. All right, now we're good. So we can control the text, the font. This is the first time I'm clicking that, so, you know, let's go with something ugly. There you go. But the idea is that you can now control it. Okay, we'll go with Show Card Gothic. I kind of like that. It's cartoony. So now we can also control the text size, the line spacing if we had multiple lines, text. Okay, we can control the line spacing, and you'll notice it's controlling it on both the front and the back face. So that's awesome. That's exactly what we want. Now our depth still doesn't work, but we're about to hook that up, so never fear. Let's go ahead and drop that down to like 9, because I think 50 is going to be too high. So let's turn our edge back on and take a look at that, and you'll notice it's already wrapped around that new text. Bueno, that's perfect. Let's go back to our Espresso by double-clicking the tab here, the tag. I like to keep mine in a tab here. Okay. Now, if you want to place it in that area, you can drag these little grids to here, to this grid, and that drops it in. Okay. So let's look at the depth. Okay. How do we control the depth of this thing? Well, it's kind of a hack, but what we're going to do is basically scale that original spline, but we can't scale the original spline. It's off limits. So we have to come into its instance and scale that. well, okay, how are we going to scale it and what direction? So let's zoom in on that and come to the side and look at what happens. If we scale on the X, whoa, that's not going to do it. That's just going to eventually flatten it out, or, you know, get it crazy high there, you know. So that's not it. Let's Control Z that. It's not the Z, because that is doing nothing, but it is the Y. Okay, now, given this is just stretching it, it's not technically extruding it, you know, as you would expect, but, you know, you can still get around this a little bit and make it look really nice. So we need to scale the Y. S.Y, scale.Y. So let's change this back to 1. So now, if we go into our Espresso, double-click the tag, this depth needs to be connected to the spline instance, scale.Y. So we'll do that here. So go to coordinates, scale, scale.y. So now if we go back to our view and hit A, boom, it's huge. Oh my goodness. So let's go to our cool text preset just to verify that we're working, and we are working. Okay, so if we look at this spline instance, and let's click this little plus arrow or plus sign here to pop that window out so that we can see it and our attribute manager for the cool text preset at the same time. When this is 3, this is 3. When this is 1, this is 1. So essentially what we need to do is at 1, everything will be fit to the structure of this original spline, the user spline. Okay, so whatever the distance is from this point to the origin, or from this point to this point, is 40 units. Okay, but as we scale it, it multiplies itself. Okay, so now it's multiplied. It's expanding itself by incrementally by 1. So what we need to do is take this number and subtract 1 to get the factor by which we need to move the front and back faces. Probably doesn't make sense, but I'm just going to show you how to do it. So let's close this and let's go back to our Espresso, double click the tag. Okay, now is when we're going to get into some cool stuff, some math, some points, and some point iteration, and really cool stuff. So let's bring in edge spline, custom edge spline, and let's go ahead and drag our spline in. It's not connected yet, but we will connect it right now. So we need to drag the spline instance in again. Could connect it here, but I kind of like to keep them separated so that I can keep them organized. So custom spline to spline instance, and this time instead of coordinates, we're looking for object properties, reference object. We want to tell this instance object, the spline instance, what object to reference, which is the custom spline. So now, when we go back, you won't see any difference because it's now connected by this spline. Okay, so our preset's completely working as far as the structure of it. We just need to get these faces to attach themselves to this spline with some math. Okay, so we can come on the output side of this spline instance, and we want to output the object. And here's why. To get access to these 2 points and their value, their distance from the origin, we need to find the point index, okay, and find the position for a particular point index, either the first or the last. It doesn't matter which, because they're both the same. They're just inverse of each other. So let's right click and go New Node, Espresso, General, and point. Now this is the point node. What we can do is take this object, connect it to object, and now if we get a new node, Espresso, general, and result. These are always handy to have around while you're building. Just keep them kind of in your Espresso group because they are quite handy. So we'll connect that result to the point count. Come back to our view, hit A, hit rewind, and come over here. And why is it doing that? Because I was an idiot. I'm sending the object. Well, the object is just an instance. It doesn't do anything. So the point node is going, what? I can't do anything with that. We want the object properties reference object. So let's delete the object port. Oops. Delete the object port, and we want to reconnect this to the reference object. Essentially what we're doing here is we're passing through the reference object. Okay, if I expand that out, it's the same on both sides. We're telling this instance what the object is that we want to reference, and then we're telling it again, okay, now spit it back out because we need it. Okay, we connect that here, and we hit A, have to go back to our view, hit A, come back over here. Voila, we have a result of 6. So essentially what this point count does is exactly what it does. It counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hooray, I'm done. The result is 6. So that's all the point node does. But what it also can do is give you the point position of a particular point index. Okay, and that's what we're interested in. We're interested in the position of the index of either the last, the 5th, or the 0, the 1st. Okay, now what you can do is there's a couple of ways to go about doing that. You can create an Espresso general constant, and that defaults to a value of 0, and you can connect that here. Okay, that tells the point node to look at this point index, and then you can output its point position. Okay, let's come over here and hit A to refresh, come back to the editor, and it's at 20, which is beautiful. That's what we need, right? Now, what I did in the example, and what I'm not sure you even have to do, is I converted this from a vector, because this is technically a vector, I think, that's coming out, and a vector to real. Let's see. Yeah, see, this is a vector. Point position vector vector. So this is technically spitting out 0, 20, 0 for point index value of 0. So it's going to this point and saying, okay, I have 3 values. It's a vector, 0, minus 20, and 0. Now, I don't know why it's giving us 20. Probably has to do with that rotating the axis and all of that jazz. Doesn't really matter because they're the same. Okay, so I don't think we need to convert that from vectors to reals. Let's just try it without it and see what happens. So disconnect the result node, and to do that, you just click on the line to break it. Okay. Now we have the point position. We have how far from the origin or from the center of the sweep NURBS. So if we look at this from the top view, hit F2. Our sweep NURBS is on the origin. Okay, so this edge is on the origin. This face and this face of this sweep is equidistant from the origin, which is exactly what we want the faces to do. So we're almost there. So let's take that 20 and let's drag in the front face. Let's start with that. And we want to go to coordinates, global position, position Z, and connect it. Let's come back over here and see what happens. So hit F1 to get to the perspective view. And let's zoom in here and hit A to refresh and see what happened. It didn't quite do it. And the reason is because we are scaling via the depth setting. Okay, now if I drop this back down to 1, that face should be connected. Okay, it's connected to the back face, or to the back of the text right now. That's supposed to be the front face. So we need to invert this. So let's go right click, new node, Espresso, calculate. Let's just use an invert. That's simple, easy, okay. Connect it to point position, connect the output to front face. Now if we go back to our view, hit A, and let's see what happened here. All right. Not quite. It is... See, I have a feeling that... Let's just go ahead and... Let's do it the hard way. Let's go ahead and add a vectors to reels and do all of that. So new node, Espresso, adapter, vector to reels. Because this is a real value, this is a vector, and mixing them doesn't always work. So point position to the input of the vector to reels node, and let's pick the Y because I think that's what it was. Okay, and let's come back to our view, hit A. Okay, so our front face is not where it's supposed to be. Let's connect the result node and let's check it out and see what it says. I wish Espresso would refresh. Okay, so it's not on the Y. Let's try the Z. Okay, let's break that line. Come back to our view. Alright, now that did move it back. So it put it on the back face. We need to invert that. Instead of using the invert, let's use a math node because math is cool sometimes. Calculate math. Okay, so we'll put the input from the output from the Z of the vector to reels to the first input of the math add, and for the second input of the math add, we'll make it -1, but we need to change it to math multiply because we want to invert the value, multiply it by -1, inverts it. Connect the output to the global position Z of the front face and hit A. Bam. Okay. Now we're talking. We need to connect the back face in the same fashion. Okay, so we've already got the number. All we need to do is drag the back face in and connect that without inverting it to the coordinates global position Z. Okay, come back over here, hit A, bam. And now you're thinking, wahoo, we're done. Well, kinda, but not right, not really. Because as soon as we adjust the depth, you'll notice it breaks. Because we are scaling the spline, we're scaling the instance of the spline. The calculation being done here is based off the spline itself, not the instance, okay? Because all we're doing, remember, is passing that reference object. We're passing the original spline so that we can count the points, so that we can get the position and attach them. Now, how do we take into account the depth, which is here? Okay, we can take this value and then multiply it by the value that's currently being input into the back face and the front face. And what that's going to do is incrementally increase the position of the back and front face, their distance from 0, by the factor that you are scaling that spline instance. Let's connect it. Okay, so let's move over a bit and let's actually zoom out a little bit and let's move all of this down. Let's draw a selection around them, move them down just a bit because we need to connect this depth setting And sorry, it's a little small there. This depth setting to a, let's see, it's a real, so we can connect that directly to a math node. Okay, so Espresso calculate math, and we want to multiply the depth from on input 1. Okay, multiply it with this value here, and then put it into the back face. Okay, so what this is doing is it's taking the original value and multiplying it by the scale factor, and that will move the back face to its position every time. So if we come over here, spin around to the back, and zoom out a little bit so you can see it in, and hit A, boom, there it is. Now that back face will follow as we scale and move. Pretty cool. So now the trick will be to connect the front face, and we'll be almost done. So let's go back to the Espresso editor, and we want to multiply this value. So you always want to trace backwards when you're inserting something into an equation. You want to trace backwards. This is where we want to end up. This is where we were before. So this is the actual value. This red line is the actual value that we want to adjust. Okay, so let's move our viewport over a little bit, drag the front face over a little bit, and let's actually, since this math node is simply inverting it, we can connect this output, because these two are the same number and they're going to do the same function. We can connect this output to this input to simply invert it and then add it to the front face. We didn't have to do anything, really, just connected an output. So let's check it out and see if it works. Hit A, boom, there it is. So now, let's zoom out a little bit. Now when we go to our preset, not only can we change the text, change my text, but we can change the font. We can change the font size, make it bigger, make it smaller, change the spacing. We can extrude it. Okay, that's pretty cool. We're getting there. We are pretty much done. We got to connect the custom spline, which is easy to do, and then we'll set up some materials and call it good. I'll show you also how to tidy all of this up so that when you launch it, all you see is a null object and your settings to change. You won't have any of this mess. All this under the hood stuff goes away. So I'll show you how to do that as well. We've got a little bit of time. Let's get this done. Okay, go back to our Espresso editor, and let's drag in cool text preset. Okay, just because we're running out of space and running out of time. Let's go over here, add user data. Let's manage user data. And let's add a group. Drop this group into cool text preset, and we'll call this materials. Okay. And let's see, let's drop this, drop that, and put it here. Okay, and add a data. And we'll call this front face. Okay, twirl that open, make sure it's there. And this will be a texture, I believe. Okay. No, it's not a texture. Not color profile. I thought it was texture. Let's just click OK. Let me come back over here just to make sure real fast here. Layer manager, because I've got them all hidden. Let's re-show and come over here, and yeah. All right, let's jump back over here and open up this Espresso, and we will new node Espresso general. No, that's wrong. Let's see. Let's go back to our presets. Sorry. Manage user data. I don't know if this is right. Let's see. Let's cancel. Here's a quick way to find out. Yeah, that's not right. So let's go to manage user data and let's see. We're going to delete that and add a new one, and we'll call, let's see. I know let's go texture. No, that's not right. Gradient, integer, matrix, pathless, priority, spline, string, texture. It's got to be texture. Okay. Don't think it's working though. Let's just leave it at that. And let's create a material here, and we'll make it red. Go with a nice red, and we'll bring it over here, and we'll make a nice blue. Okay, and we'll drag another one and make a nice green. All right, and we'll name this green, and we'll name this blue, just so that we know what we're doing, and we'll name this red. Okay, and let's see. Can I drag this here? No, can't. This is a texture link. Duh. Manage user data. Let's get rid of that, and let's add a new data, and we'll call this a link. And I think that should do it. Front face. Sorry, it's late. So that should do it. Yes. Okay. So let's manage user data, and we will make a copy of that and call this back face. Okay, and we'll make a copy of that and make this the edge. Okay, click OK. You now have exactly what I had in my preset. 3 boxes, all drop down, all connected, ready to go. Front face, back face, edge. Now we need to connect this to, doesn't matter, we're going to change it. Blue, put on the front face, red on the edge. Okay, let's get rid of this. Now, what we will do is take this texture tag and drag it in here. That's where I was getting confused. It's not a texture in the user data, it's texture tag. Okay, let's rename this to basic edge and front and back. Okay, and that renamed them down here. So now we can go to this node here, go to cool text preset materials, and go to front, cool text preset materials, go to back, cool text preset, go to materials and edge. Control double click to optimize that there. Get a little bit more room, and let's connect them. So front face goes first, and then back face, and then edge. Move all these up here. Front face to the blue box, output to input, and let's go to basic property. No, let's see, tag properties, material. Okay, back face, output to blue input, tag properties, material, edge to edge blue, tag properties, and material. So now, when we go to our preset, we can take green into the front face, we can take red to the edge, we can take blue to the back face. And there you go. You can now texture the front, back edges all separately and build your own custom edges and just really rock the text. This is pretty simple, straightforward once you get it set up. Now let me show you how to clean this up real fast before we wrap this up. Now you heard me mention Layer Manager. That's how we're going to keep it clean. So we right click on Elements, and we go to Add to New Layer. Okay, and that drops into the Layers Manager. If you don't see the Layers Manager in your layout, go to Window, Layer Manager. Okay, and we'll call this Elements. And now you can hide it from the manager. Okay, boom. Now all you've got is Cool Text Preset. All of your settings are there. Everything under the hood is hidden. You can even add this to, here's what I did in the preset. I'll show you how to do that. Layer Manager. And let's unhide the elements. And let's drag this Espresso tag onto that elements layer. And then we'll add it to the elements layer itself. Except I don't want Cool Text Preset. I want this tag on the elements layer. So that way when I hide it in the manager, it all goes away. So now it's just up to you to create as many splines as you want. You know, if they get crazy, always remember you can still select that spline, hit T to scale it, and you should be able to still scale it if you're in object mode, and that'll scale it even though you've already created it, which that helps you kind of fine tune it once you lay it into your preset. I think it's cool. Again, you know, thanks to Eugene Opperman for creating this tutorial here, custom extruded text. You know, check it out. Great guy, and that was a really good tutorial. Kind of inspired me to build the preset. So I hope you guys liked it. That's the Cool Text preset. You know, download the one I'm going to provide to you. Take a look at it. Go through the tutorial that we just did. I've got a bunch of these preset splines that are pretty cool, but please feel free to go in and build your own. That's the fun of it, and see what this can do. I'd like to see what you guys come up with. But that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you liked it. We did some Espresso. We learned some point iteration. We did some math. Really, really cool thing to keep in your arsenal, because now you can create whatever cool text you feel like creating. And there you go. I hope you like it. Thanks a bunch, guys.